Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I have a special treat for all of you today. Russell Lundstrom, Chief Marketech, who has not only started multiple seven-figure businesses and has 35 years of experience on the front lines of this crazy thing called entrepreneurship and marketing, but has created a marketing plan formula for all of you. So, Russell, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I was looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah. Well, before we get into what is a marketect, let's talk about your background. I mean, holy moly, multiple seven-figure businesses.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something to brag on or it's a sign of insanity. My father was, the American success story, came over from Europe, with $100 in his pocket in the 50s to New York. And his dream was, America was a place you could make dreams a reality. And that was just instilled in all of us, my brother and sister, and pretty much our whole family are all entrepreneurs. And so I've had miscellaneous jobs here and there throughout my life, mostly just cooking and kitchen work. But, I always just started my own business. And for every success I've had, there's 10 or 20 failures and trying behind them. So it's been quite a ride, that's for sure.
It definitely sounds like you have a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it is I have a lot of arrows in my back. Us pioneers, we end up with all the arrows.
Mm-hmm. When you think about entrepreneurship, people often think about the success stories, but there's so much trial and error. And even when I was younger, I was always doing different things that I wanted to start on my own. But then I would look at family members who are entrepreneurs and go, oh, but are they successful at it? Well, if you're in entrepreneurship, that is success.
Yeah.
And there's obviously the delineations between all of those.
Success is defined by you, right? Like each individual defines their own success. So sometimes I think, it's a blessing to be an entrepreneur, but it's also a curse. I mean, there's no off switch. You're always thinking about it, even when you're on vacation. And it's the ultimate buck stops here kind of a job. Yeah. And so you bear the brunt of everything. Customers, employees, say, you name it, you're on the line. So
what was the first company that you ever started?
Like real company?
Define real.
Well, so I was that knucklehead kid who was hand-drawn comic books in like 7th, 8th grade. I remember I have one in my storage, but the Greek gods, and I would sell these hand-drawn comic books. So that might have been my first business, but kind of my first true legitimate business is a kind of a funny story. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and so I'm old enough to have been pre-snowboarding and then saw the birth of snowboarding. And so, of course, being here, we were some of the first snowboarders, and we were crazy about it because I grew up skateboarding. And that too, I was really lucky. I was riding with Burton and a friend of mine, and we were traveling and doing all these contests. And back then, there wasn't any gear to wear. So we were wearing jeans. And, now it's a joke. Like we see bumper stickers, like Trump skis and jeans and stuff like that here in Denver. But skiing in jeans was tough. And so his mom knew how to sew. And so she would make us these fleece and flannel drawstring pants. Nice. Right. And it was funny because, we were in high school. And so we called it free ball riding gear. And we made hats and fleece jackets, pullover fleece jackets and pants. And we had a little family sew them up for us on East Colfax. And that was kind of probably the first initial business.
Oh my gosh, how fun. And then what happened with that business? Did you?
That one? I went to college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, college took over and we still have the name. We still have the domain. I kind of wish we stuck with it, but that's been the story of my life, is we have all these crazy ideas and go just run with them. And you never know what's going to happen. So
yeah, call it back. Although
yeah,
I will say I didn't grow up snowboarding, but I only ever learned to snowboard in the late 90s, never skied. But now my daughter, we taught her how to ski first. And then now she's 15. And so she's transitioned the last couple years to snowboarding. Mm-hmm. And just wants to do that. But we wanted to have that foundation as well.
Oh,
also,
yeah.
We used to work for magazines and we'd sponsor like the American Snowboard Tour and Swatch.
Oh, cool.
Snowcross and like all those fun things. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah. I've gone full circle. I'm back to skiing now.
Awesome. So what are some of the things that you would say were the lessons that you learned over and over again in the different businesses that took you to where you are now, which is fine tuning and helping people figure out how to properly market their company?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. My role in all these different businesses was always, well, one is we never raised money. I did that one time during the dot-com boom. We raised money for a software deal, but otherwise they were all bootstrapped operations, self-funded, second mortgage. We started a supplement business in 2013 where at one point we were juggling like 22 different credit cards.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I say we a lot because I'm also very fortunate. I mentioned my dad raised us, my sister and brother, we worked together in the business. And so she's the numbers person. She understands all the analytics. I say she flies at 500 feet and I fly at 30,000 feet, but I'm always the marketing guy. And over the years, we were really lucky just with timing on everything. You know, we saw the birth of the internet and, you know, we were there when Google was easy and we had a tea company and we were getting 3,000 unique visitors a day from search engine stuff. You know, that was when it was easy. But what's happened in the last 20, 30 years now is marketing has gone from, you think about the 80s and 90s, it was pretty simple to make your choices. Today, marketing is even hard to define. It's everything from, you know, if your employees wear uniforms, that's marketing. It's your website, it's offline, it's online, it's customer service, like everything falls in the marketing bucket. And what didn't exist is any sort of toolkit that helps the CEO, founder, or CMO, or lead marketing person. How do you decide on should we be doing this or should we be doing that when every day there's some new marketing opportunity, some new network, right? TikTok was last year, this year, everyone's chat GPT, right? But how do you make these decisions when you have limited resources to deploy those limited resources to get a return on your investment and grow your business? That's kind of what led me to where I'm at now, is making every mistake in the book to figure that out.
And there's so much information out there on what you should do or what you shouldn't do. And it's so personal. And I hate it when somebody comes out and says, I have the perfect formula and you need to have Facebook groups or you need to have LinkedIn group or you need to do blah, 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 because those are techniques and tactics that might not work, but there is an underlying strategy and method to this madness. And that's what you're trying to teach people, is actually like, let's build the foundation, make that really strong.
Yeah. And that's part of where this came from, is like, you know, there's 1,000,001 marketing gurus out there, and we've probably bought every one of their courses and every one of their products. And while it may work for them in some select businesses, at least in our case, we have yet to ever find one that worked for us. Like in our supplement business, when we first started advertising on Facebook, we hired a Facebook guru who, you know, I hate to say it, but we basically wasted $50,000 in ad spend with him. And almost, I think we had a total of like 2 or 3 sales. It was horrible.
Oh my God.
Nearly put us out of business. And those are all the lessons learned. And one of those lessons is, you're exactly right. You cannot take a unique business with a unique product and shove it into, you know, it's like shoving a square business in a round hole. It just doesn't go. And that's exactly what we're trying to replace or fix in this world with this idea of marketect.
Yeah.
Being a marketing architect.
So talk about that. What was the aha moment that led you to combine those two words and say, oh, this is it?
Yeah.
The next it, the current it.
It's funny you say aha moment, because it was an aha moment. Most entrepreneurs, I don't know if you're the same way, but we love our whiteboards, right? Like everybody loves to sit and doodle and brainstorm on their whiteboards. And it was during this meeting where I was working with 7 business owners, and this was 2019, and I was showing them some marketing stuff. And it was one of those moments where I was like, hey, wait a minute. If we move this over here and do this and change this, holy cow, how come no one's ever seen this before? And I call it my whiteboard epiphany moment. And that was the birth of this idea of reverse engineering your marketing. Is your marketing and your decisions should come from the business and not the other way around. You don't shove the business into certain marketing strategies. Your customers will tell you basically what message they need to hear in order to entertain doing business with you. They'll tell you where they go to solve those problems. Those are your marketing channels. And then you just have to make sure you have the right offer and your offer is unique in the marketplace. And if you listen to your customers and do all the right things, you know, it's a game of probabilities. There's no magic button or magic light switch that makes things work, but you want to stack the odds of success in your corner. And that's how you do it, is by talking to your customers.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for businesses that are starting out. I know some people listening might go, I don't have any customers yet. But I think I know what you're going to say here, because it's what I would say to them. But I'd love to hear what you say to somebody like that when they come to you and want to figure out how to put together all their plans.
Yeah. Well, so we lean a lot on this analogy. And so let's say you've had this vision of your dream home your entire life, right? If we were to sit down and have coffee, you could probably tell me how many bedrooms are in your dream home, what they look like, how many bathrooms, what kind of a house. Is it an adobe house? Is it a colonial? What's the color? You have a pretty clear vision of this dream home. And if you were to go out and you finally get the money to build your dream home, you go out and you hire a general contractor, hand them all your money. They turn around and hire the specialists, the plumbers, the electricians, the drywallers, all those people that know how to actually build the home. There's a piece in there that's missing. In the real world, you would be insane. You would never go hire that general contractor if you didn't have a blueprint, right? That's just ludicrous. But in the business world, that's what happens is you have the business owner or entrepreneur has this vision. And 9 times out of 10, they don't know marketing or they know very little of marketing, but they know they need marketing to get their word out. So they go hire a general contractor, which is, XYZ marketing agency or guru, and just hand them a bunch of money and say, hey, go to work. And this is why I think most marketing engagements end in, unfortunately, disappointment, if not outright failure, is they're missing this blueprint that says, hey, this is the vision we want to build. These are the pieces of the puzzle we have to get in place. This is the budget. This is the material list. This is everything we need, literally the blueprint. And we want to remove the speculation. So whenever we are talking to a business owner, I just left a meeting and she's like, well, I know my customer. Everybody knows their customer. And as soon as you start a sentence with, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that, you're guessing. Yeah. What we prefer to do and what the formula does is say, okay, how do we know? How do we do the data research to figure out where to place our bets? And so in a startup situation, it's a little bit more tough because you haven't really proved your idea, your product market fit, all that stuff. And then again, it separates out, are you talking about a B2B business, B2C? But ideally, at the end of the day, the periodic table of marketing, like what are those base elements that apply to every business out there, is a formula. And you want to think of it like a math formula with variables. And the variables are RM plus RP plus RTP, which stands for if you show the right message to the right person at the right time and place, chances are you're going to be successful, right? Yeah. So if we start thinking about this, the right message and the right time and place, those are both 100% dependent on the right person. Correct? So if you're, say, for example, you're selling to a housewife versus a house husband, even though the product is applicable to both of them, the mom in the family is going to have a completely different list of needs and wants that she wants to hear versus the dad. Yeah. Right. And they probably go to different places. Mom might be going to her PTA and mommy's group and whatever, and she reads certain websites and certain blogs and has certain newsletters. Dad has his. He's going, wherever, to the sports teams or wherever he goes, and he's reading different newsletters and different websites and different places. So the key to all of this is identifying who is that right person, who's your customer. If you're a pre-existing business, we want to go in and look at who's your most profitable customer, right? Every business, you've talked to enough business owners, every single business I've ever talked to has that 80-20, where 20% of their customers are responsible for 80% of their profits. So logically, we just come in and say, hey, if these are your most profitable customers, let's identify those as the RP, your right customer. If you're in a startup situation, that's where you still got to be a little bit speculative, but you say, all right, who's the person my product or service solves the problem for? And then go talk to those people and do the research and say, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And out of that comes the right messaging you need to have. And also, if you just ask and say, hey, where do you go to solve these problems? They'll tell you. And now you also know what channels and what strategies you should be doing. It's a bit of a stretch, but like a realtor with a big Snapchat channel. Okay, yeah, your customers are on Snapchat, but should you be investing any real time or money? They don't go there to buy a house. Yeah. Same with like maybe Pinterest is probably not the right channel. YouTube, I don't know. But if you ask your customers, they'll tell you. Right. And then you do know, right? And so what we do is we employ different surveys and phone interviews and whatever, but then we start getting numerically based and data-based answers. So in a startup, if you talk to 10 people and they all tell you, oh, well, I go to YouTube first, there's your first strategy. You better be putting a lot of effort into YouTube. So it's a lot of just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love putting together like demographic and psychographic research and pulling that in and figuring out what are those compelling things that will help draw somebody to your brand or product. Like what's the call to, like, what's the issue that you're solving for them? How are you solving it? And what's that call to action that you're giving them?
Yeah. The burden of marketing is, I call it the marketing iceberg, right? Like you think, oh, we're just going to do a blog and SEO, right? It's no problem. I got it. And then all of a sudden you get into it, and under the surface is this mountain of work that you had no idea about. You know, now you're looking at technical SEO and page load speed and schematics and keyword density. And then you find out it's actually really a game of backlinks and keeping your backlinks. And now you're in the backlink business. And it's just like, oh my God, so overwhelming. So how do we really use our limited resources, time, money, and opportunity, and make something happen that generates cash flow that you can do more marketing with? That's the whole idea.
Yeah. So when did you start being the marketect, the chief marketect?
Well, as I said, my whiteboard epiphany was right before the world was shut down with this pandemic, and which was, I think, fortuitous, kind of the universe validating what I was doing. We had a lot of test case studies where we could go back and say, all right, we've done these things with these companies and it works. That's what's great about it, is because we're reverse engineering the marketing plan out of the business. It doesn't matter. We've done this for global brands like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the way down to a local barber shop, you know, just a mile from the house. It doesn't matter because it's coming out of the business. And so we did that first year. The second year of pandemic, we were all kind of coming out of our caves. We did a little bit of work. We mostly worked with CEOs who were tired of wasting money on marketing. If I never have to have a conversation with a CEO saying, hey, I hired this marketing agency and spent $30,000 and got nothing for it, I must hear that on a weekly basis. That's one of my missions, is to eradicate that. We did that for the first year. And then the problem is human resources. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's really hard to find quality people these days. So we were primarily working with the CEOs and founders, but they don't have time to do this themselves. And they kept coming to us saying, hey, do you know somebody who can do this for us? This idea of marketing blueprints. And so late March of last year, opened up what we call our CMO school, where we teach this process. So now we have a bunch of marketing professionals that come in, go through the program, learn how to do this step by step. And then we have the graduates and we have the entrepreneurs, and we just put the two together, and it's a win-win for everybody, right? That
is, what an amazing way to solve that issue. Yeah. I work in workforce development, education, nonprofits, and with small businesses and entrepreneurs, and the skilled labor force, and like what motivates people to work or not work based on generations, all the different factors, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a major issue.
It's a major issue. Yeah. It's one of those things in the marketing world. I mean, if I try to always put myself in the seat of the marketing professional, there is just so many different channels, even just deciding offline versus online. I mean, maybe you're an event planner. That's marketing. Yeah. Right. Or you do trade shows or billboards or TV advertising. That's not online. So, or radio. Right. So there's just so many different channels. And then you go online and it becomes infinite what you can do with it. So it's really difficult, you know, that career path for a marketing professional. How do you make these decisions for a long-term career? And yeah, the world needs the plumbers, electricians, and drywallers to build the house. Those are the specialists. Yeah, we need the general contractors. Those are the marketing agencies that manage all the specialists. But what really was missing is this idea of an architect who does the blueprint. Yeah. And that's our little tiny niche in the world. And that's what we do. We kind of connect the vision to the plan and hopefully make things work for people.
Well, it's really important, because the number of people who've come to me saying, I'm ready for PR, I'm ready for this or that. And I'm like, no, you're not even close.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, right. You're a PR expert, right?
Yeah. I do branding, PR. Yeah. A little, and I know a little bit about critical. A lot of stuff. To be dangerous, or okay, no, you're actually not ready for any of that. You need to go to something like what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a good point. Like everything, we always say, you know, baby food for babies and adults food for adults. You don't want to feed a baby a steak, right? So if you're coming in and you're a brand new startup, maybe PR and SEO aren't the two strategies you should be chasing, because those are long-term games, right? Especially SEO. Yeah. That's a long game and very expensive. So if you need cash flow today and you need customers today, SEO isn't probably the primary strategy you should be doing. You should be dialing in your message and probably using paid ads to get a customer today, something like that. But again, we don't know and we don't speculate. We go find out from the customer where that is, and then we go do it. And then once you solidify that kind of the cash flow and this idea of like a minimum viable marketing funnel, then you can start layering in SEO and expanding out and getting new customers in. But everything in its place. It's the right time and right place for stuff.
Yeah. Well, speaking about all of the confluence of like everything and the integrations and all of the different social media channels and knowing who knows what's going to happen with certain ones, right? There's just a big conference in LA for Variety Magazine, like the Entertainment Summit. And
look at the world of AI. I think the marketing world is entering in a new era just in the last 2-3 months.
Oh gosh, definitely.
I've talked to numerous CEOs in the last month. Like I talked to one just last week, fired, unfortunately, 4 out of 5 of their marketing team because chat and these different AI tools do the same amount of work.
Wow.
And so if you're a professional marketer today, if you see the opportunity and you understand and know how to use these tools to further your career and be a problem solver, not just a task monkey, it's great. But if you're running the risk, there's a high risk, 80% risk that your job's basically obsolete. And the game as we know it has changed too. You know, this whole idea of SEO is changing. If you can have a website that's dynamically written and created on the fly based on my background, and it goes and references Facebook and Instagram and all the different social profiles, and it knows what I want, and it can generate a web page on the fly specifically for me, kind of like your Instagram and Facebook feeds and TikTok shows you what they think you want to see, and they're pretty good at it. There's no reason search and your website and all that can't do the same exact thing. So games changed dramatically in just the last few months.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, when you're thinking about the customer journey and where you're finding your ideal customer personas, that might be changing, right? Because now what's going to happen with TikTok? But we also know TikTok is the #1 search engine, I think, for both millennials and Gen Z now, above Google. People go to TikTok for explainer videos instead of going to Google now or going to YouTube. That's a difference. And then Lemonade is a new platform that's kind of like a marriage of a couple. Like there are all these new things that people are always
constantly.
So it's the shiny object syndrome a little bit, but it's also the algorithms are changing. So then how does that play into the work that you do, trying to find the right customers in the right place at the right time?
So what we preach is most of the time, most businesses' marketing plan is this idea of, hey, let's try as much as we can. Let's throw as much against the wall as we can and hope something sticks before we run out of money, time, or opportunity, right?
Yeah.
What we do is we come in and say, hey, look, again, you have limited resources. So let's try, and there's this idea of the conversion event and your customer awareness. And my friend Joel Irway is the one that taught me this. It's another metaphor or analogy. I always get those mixed up. But if you're golfing, the probability of you hitting a hole in one from the tee box most of the time is 0.
Right.
You know, sometimes unless you can hit it 500 yards, which most people can't, it's not even possible. But if your ball is, a foot from the hole, the probability of you putting that thing in is pretty darn high. So in your customers, there are customers, regardless of what business you're in, that are ready to buy right now. If you put the right message in front of them, they'll write you a check today, right? Their problem is that dire. And if you can solve it, they're ready to buy today. They don't need a big education on why to do business with you. They're aware they have a problem. They're actively looking for a solution. All they need to know is why you. Right. So we want to start there. We want to start 1 foot from the hole, not in the tee box. So doing, these big ascension models where you have a lead gen and a download, and then they have to make 20 to 30 different decisions to actually get to that conversion event. It works, but it's expensive and time consuming. Let's go straight to the hole in that conversion event right away and start there and work out backwards.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So what are some of the stories that you've heard from people who've worked with you through this process? On
the one scale, we've worked with companies like everyone's heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And their problem was they have 30 years of products, I think at the time we did this 2 years ago, they had over 35 different products.
Oh my gosh.
And if you're familiar with Rich Dad, they do everything from real estate to Amazon opportunities to personal development, like cryptocurrency to stocks, you name it. They have some products for everything. And the problem is they had 100,000 visitors plus a month, unique visitors coming to their website, and people weren't able to get what they needed. It was really difficult to show them that information. So what we did is we did this research. We did some surveys with them, and this is based a lot on Ryan Levesque's work, the deep dive survey stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but brilliant work. And basically that's where this reverse engineering comes from. But at the end of the day, we found out they had 4 main buckets buckets: real estate, personal development, stocks, and small business opportunities. Within each of those buckets were 4 sub buckets. In real estate, you've got advanced to beginners, tax problems. How do you do this? And really what we did is we created this, we were playing with the name, but basically was the entrepreneur quiz. And because we did the research and we knew what the buckets were, we could reverse engineer it now and ask the questions that got the people to the right place that they needed to go to just by asking a few questions. And it increased all their conversions across the board, I think on average about 60%.
Oh my, that's wow. Yeah.
Just by doing that, it's a basic thing. You're showing people what they want to see rather than having them search for it.
Yeah.
So that was an example. We've done it with startups. Yeah, it's 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Like if you have 5 hours to chop down a tree, spend 4 hours sharpening your axe, something like that.
Well, I think people try to put out everything at once, right? They put all the information into one brochure because they want to make sure they don't leave anything out, or they put everything all over the website. And to your point, that really makes it much more difficult for the consumer to go in and know exactly, and be able just to click through and buy what they want to buy and get out of there.
Yeah. And a lot of times when we're doing this research, so like the Rich Dad example, we got respondents over 7,000 answers to these surveys. It was a really good population to get statistically relevant information from. And what we learned was we also uncovered a multi-million-dollar opportunity was in these responses. We had over 30% of that 7,000. Somebody mentioned the idea of, I don't have the confidence, or my confidence is destroyed. And this idea of confidence. So now we could come in and say, look, 30% of your people are struggling with a confidence issue. Do you have a product that can help them with confidence? No, they didn't. So now they're like, oh, well, we should do a confidence product. Multi-million-dollar opportunity that came out of that customer research. And we've got a bunch of stories like that where you think your customers need one thing and they tell you they need another, and you just completely reinvent your business because of it.
Amazing. That's so cool. So in your journey, what was one of the most difficult transformations that you had to go through to get from starting out writing those comic books and creating snowboarding gear to today?
Wow, good question. The biggest transformative piece, it would be probably around, most people use the word vision, but just being clear about what you want and what your expectations are. And I'm a big believer in the universe was here before we ever showed up, and it will be here long after we're gone. And there's a bit of a flow to it. And the universe is here. Like if you put it out there, everyone's heard that, right? The world will conspire to make it real. Well, the problem is you got to get it out of your head and onto paper so the world knows what you're going to do. If you can do that, I've found like that's probably one of the most valuable things you can do, is just being able to be clear in what you want. And it's tough. It's so hard to do.
Yeah. And you've had multiple businesses and they've been in very different industries. For each one of those, how did you decide, or you and your siblings decide?
Well, that's why I'll say it's one of my most valuable lessons, because most of our opportunities, and I think most entrepreneurs start their businesses as problem solvers, right? So even my first business, we were in the car traveling to snowboard contest wearing wet jeans. The problem was we had nothing comfortable to wear. So the solution was we made these nice soft flannel pants. Most of my businesses were a result of chasing opportunities, and even this one today. So you sometimes don't get to write the rule book. But even when you have an opportunity, so like a really good example of this is when we started the supplement business, my sister and I in 2013, we had a vision for this business to brain supplements for high performance people, entrepreneurs, athletes, people who were the 1%, right? Because when you're already at the top, to move the needle just a little bit takes an enormous amount of effort. So, and nobody at the time was doing any sort of brain supplements or research. Well, not being clear on your vision. So that was the original vision of the business. What happened is you start chasing the money and you got to do what you got to do. And, we almost went out of business 24 times. And this is the business where we were juggling 20 different credit cards. It was nuts. But I woke up 4 years later, and what had happened is that high performance entrepreneurial company turned into a company that was selling memory supplements to baby boomers afraid of Alzheimer's. 180 degrees away from the original vision. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but but that wasn't the vision of the company I wanted to build. And I actually ended up leaving that business, which is now a multi-million-dollar opportunity. And I had to start over from scratch. So that's why in hindsight, I think it is really, really important to be clear on what you want. And even when it comes down to your marketing, even from the smallest thing of like a new ad campaign, you need to be clear on what's the scope of that campaign.
Yeah.
And then it just scales up from there. What are your 12-month, 24 and 36-month goals with the business? And even those end anchor points, what's your exit strategy? Because if you're building a lifestyle business, that's a different marketing plan than if you're planning on having some exit with a big VC company or going public. Those are all different marketing plans. And if you don't at least have those endpoints vaguely flushed out, you're going to end up maybe with an igloo instead of a nice house.
Wow.
Who knows? But that's kind of one of the most important things is you got to be able to clearly express what you want.
Yeah. What you want can change.
For sure.
But you still need to have that star to steer by.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. I've heard that you call entrepreneurs today's modern superheroes.
That's true. My people, my heart, the reason I wake up every day is for the small business entrepreneur. Again, I think this comes all the way back to my father who was on the boat to America. But it's true if you think about it. I look around my office, everything from my iPhone to my water bottle, everything in your life that's of value is because some crazy nut job in a garage mortgaged their house and took the risk to make it become a reality, right? Like the quality of our lives is a result of entrepreneurs. It's not coming from government and it's not coming from these giant corporations.
Right.
It's individuals and entrepreneurs who are making things happen. And that's why I do what I do. If I can help small businesses survive and thrive, that's my dent in the universe. And it helps raise the standard of living of the entire world, right? So, yeah, that's my French is horrible. So I'm just going to say my reason for being.
Oh. Your raison d'être?
Yeah.
Something similar to that. Yeah. I think as you're formulating this during the pandemic, that's also a time when we saw people really step into the power of, I can start my own business. The thing that I've always dreamed about is something I can now see as achievable.
Yeah. I think for me, at least, it was having that window open of I don't have to be anywhere and I can't be anywhere. And now all of a sudden I have time. And all of a sudden, all these ideas started coming in. Oh, we could do this. We could do this. And then, then the government printed oodles of money and everybody had their PPP and their COVID money. And so now that's why we saw this. Most businesses were afraid of going out of business, but the ones I talked to had banner years that year, just about everybody.
Nice.
Including the barbershop.
And we also, I think, saw how much more important marketing is because when everybody's at home focused on their computers and trying to communicate with people and see what's out there, it makes it that much harder. You have a clear message.
Yeah. Imagine your information pipe. The way you learn about things is this little 12-inch screen.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to show up somewhere on that screen or you don't exist. And that's an interesting idea is to think about the world is littered with better mousetraps throughout history that nobody knew about. And to think about that pile, right, of amazing inventions, amazing developments, magic potions, magic spells, whatever. But because the entrepreneur didn't know how to get it out into the world, we don't have it in our lives today. So marketing's key.
So to that point, how do people walk through? I believe you have a special offer, like a quick document that people can walk through to get some of the information for their own business and learn more about you and how to work with you. And
thanks. Yeah. The idea is, again, marketing's really overwhelming, right? Like sometimes you just get analysis paralysis. And so what I wanted to do is say, okay, can we just get this down to a single sheet of paper and make it easy? So we created this thing called the single sheet marketing plan, and you can get it at our website. It's basically marketingplanformula.com/yourbrandamplified. You can download it. It's meant to be a challenge. I've yet to have either an entrepreneur or a marketing person be able to download it and just whip through and fill it out. And the idea is if you get stuck, that's where your marketing is broken.
Oh, nice.
So it's a tool to help you kind of identify. Most people have at least 50% of their marketing plan good to go. It's those pieces that you don't know about that are hurting you. you. And so this tool is meant to help you kind of identify where those holes are. And then we, of course, offer, if you want, we're happy to sit down and walk you through the process, walk you through your own marketing plan, and help you build all that out. So that's absolutely the place I would recommend starting for anybody.
And we will have that in the show note for everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
So don't worry if you didn't write it down. And when somebody works with you, do you have tiered pricing? Is it customized for each person, each company?
Primarily, we just teach people how to do this blueprinting. I want to see when you go to LinkedIn and you're searching for jobs, I want to see Marketect as a job title, right? Like you can search for Marketects.
Okay.
So what we do is it's basically a 12-week program where we teach these steps, step by step, on how to create this blueprint. And then we certify our graduates out into the world, and then we can combine them with owners. And we have a ton of opportunities on that side. But we're first and foremost an educational school. We like to think of it as like a vocational school. We got to teach you what to do, but then we actually do live classrooms work twice a week where our students are coming in and we're working on their marketing. That's why we call it a vocational school. And so we get to see really cool stuff. We've got a student in there right now that's running $1 million a year ad campaign on Facebook. And you just don't get to see that stuff every day, right?
And then they get to learn from each other. That's so
exactly.
Cool. Yeah,
exactly. So we have these brilliant marketers. Everybody's helping everybody. And that's the support system moving forward too, because as you said, it's always changing. I mean, from last year to this year, we've gone through Clubhouse, right? And now there's chat, and it's just the dynamics of it. So having kind of a place to come like this marketing alumni of the best is really cool too. So that's what we do, is we try to keep it simple.
Nice. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to share with the audience today?
Boy, we covered a lot of ground.
I know. I feel like I could keep you on the phone for hours on the phone.
I think
on the Zoom.
The last piece of the puzzle that we didn't really touch on. So when you're building out this marketing plan, it is like a puzzle. Like each piece has only one unique mate. You got to do this before you can do this, before you can do this, right? Well, the final piece of the puzzle is you need to know your numbers, right? And especially in today's day and age, you have to have the metrics and the KPIs that make the whole machine work. And that's how you spot check your vision or objectives and make sure you're on the right track. So there's, what are your company level numbers? What's your profit margins? What's your lifetime value of a customer is probably one of the most valuable numbers to know, things like that. But then also down at the marketing strategy level, what are those benchmark numbers? Like if you're running a Facebook ad campaign, how do you know if it's working or not?
Right.
And if it's broken, where is it broken? And your numbers tell you all that stuff. So that's kind of the final piece of the puzzle, is you really kind of got to know your metrics and KPIs. And that's what kind of completes the loop on this marketing machine.
Very nice. Awesome. Well, I know that I'm going to be digging into stuff because I know I can always learn more. And I just really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Me too.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom, a mantra, quote, words that you live by?
On my website, my quote on there is just focus on creating value for people and the rest success will follow. Because at the end of the day, that's what being an entrepreneur is, solving somebody's problem.
Yeah.
And if you just focus on value, it's not about the money. It's not about anything other than just creating value for somebody, and the rest of the world will just fall in behind you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Russell, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about being the chief marketect and how everybody can create and reverse engineer their marketing plans based on their ideal customers.
Yeah, I'm thankful you let me get the message out there, and I really appreciate it. And the world needs marketects. I think it's the number one job out there that businesses need. So
yeah, you heard it here.
Yeah.
And to the audience, thank you for coming back for another episode of Your Brand Amplified. And I will bring on another amazing expert guest in a few days. So be on the lookout. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.